Hi everyone, welcome back to another live community classroom with Michaels. We have our friend Edie Eckman with us today, and we're going to be learning how to make this beautiful mosaic crochet blanket wrap. My name is Renee L. from Your Inspirations, and I'll be helping with any questions you might have during today's class. Please feel free to drop your questions in the chat and we'll make sure that Edie answers them. While we're getting ready to kick things off, let us know where you're watching from. Over to you, Edie.
Hi, everybody. Good evening and welcome. I'm excited to be here. Tonight's class is a little bit different from some of the other ones I've done. We're going to be doing mosaic crochet. And before I start showing you the how-tos, I want to just talk a minute about what mosaic crochet is, because there are different techniques that all kind of fall under the umbrella of mosaic crochet. So there's interlocking crochet, there's overlay crochet, there are different ways to do overlay mosaic. But basically what we're doing tonight uses front loop and back loop stitches for the most part to create these effects. And it'll make more sense as I go through it, but I just want to point out that that is the technique we're using. And so you may have done a different kind of mosaic crochet in the past. Don't be confused. That's also mosaic crochet. This is just a specific technique. The pattern tells you exactly how to do it, but it's a little confusing until you just like do what the pattern says and it works, because I started out that way the other day too. I was like, I don't know if this is going to work. But then I did it and I did exactly what the pattern says. And yes, it works. So that's what we'll do. And I'll walk you through it, and I'll walk you through the first few rows tonight. So let me switch my camera view here so you can see my hands. And I'm going to start out, I'm using Caron Crystal Cakes, just the pattern that the yarn that's called for in the pattern. I'm using Dusk, I think is the name of it, and Shea butter, which is the kind of gray color. So let's talk about first working into a chain, because this shawl is worked, or blanket, what do they call it? Blanket wrap is worked lengthwise. So we are starting working this is the foundation chain down here. And you're working in this direction. So it's wide, but it's not as tall as it is wide. So just so you know, we're working in this direction. A lot of times you think you're going to be working in this direction, but you're working the lengthwise. You want to make sure when you do that foundation chain that you are working loosely enough, because you don't want it to pull in. I am using a J hook, which is what is called for in the pattern, but you always want to stop and do a gauge swatch first before you start a project, so you know that you're getting the right gauge. So the way I would do a gauge swatch is I just want to make sure that I'm trying the J hook because that's what's suggested. I want to make sure that I am doing that chain plenty loosely. So I might make it super loose, because I almost can't be too loose on that edge. Now, the pattern calls for using color A, and I'm actually using color B here. You'll just have to bear with me. My color A is tied up with something else. So when I chain whatever number I think I'm going to need to chain to get a good gauge swatch, and that's going to be about 6 inches worth. I'm not going to actually do the gauge swatch, but I do want to show you a couple of things about how I would do that gauge swatch. So I don't know, that's maybe, it calls for 11 single crochets equals 4 inches. And if I know I want about 6 inches worth of gauge, I'm going to do some number more than that. So that looks like it would be about enough. Another thing I like to do when I'm starting a project that's going to show both the top and bottom edges. So again, on this blanket, that first row down here is going to show there's not an edging on it. And I want it to look exactly the same as the top. So you may be used to working your first row into the front of the chain like this. So single crochet in the second chain from hook, you may be used to working like from the front of the chain to the back of the chain like that with 2 strands over top. But if I want this edge to look exactly the same on the top and the bottom, I'm actually going to turn my chain over and work into this back bump. Let's take a look at the chain itself. Looks like a series of V's. When I turn it over, I have a series of bumps. This is kind of fuzzy yarn. You can't quite see that. But what I like to do is work into that back bump all the way across. And when I do that, so this would be row 1. I'm going to come back and show you row 1 again with the other color. But when I work into the back bump like this of each stitch, then the top and bottom edges look exactly the same. I'll show you what I mean here when I do a couple more stitches. So if I do that in each stitch across, here's the top of my single crochet row. So that's what the top of my blanket would look like. But look at the bottom. You see how beautiful that is? That looks exactly the same. You get these series, looks like chains, but it's just the top of your stitch. So the top and bottom look exactly alike, as opposed to if I just worked into the back, the top loop here. I'm going to show you what that looks like. Or if I work into the center, I'm going to get different kinds of edges on my blanket. So here I am. Let's take a look at what that looks like. So I showed you the top of the blanket looks the same, but take a look at how the bottom, you see how it looks like chains here, but look at what this looks like. That's a completely different look. So that's why I like to work into the back bump on that first row. The pattern doesn't tell you to do that. I'm just giving you a little bit of extra tip there about how to make that first row a little bit differently and have it look great. So you're going to do your gauge swatch, and hopefully you're going to get 11 single crochets equals 4 inches. And whether you use a J hook or K hook or an L hook or whatever you need, use whatever you need to get that gauge. Because what you're going for is a nice, not too thick, not too loose fabric. To save some time, I've done a sample here of a couple of rows. So the pattern tells us with A, which is the gray, the shea butter, chain 213. I made a note that I would want to use a larger hook for that. So when I did this chain, this is not 213 stitches, by the way, we'd be here all night if I did that. But when I did this chain, I used, I think, a K or an L hook to get that, to make sure that's loose enough. And I worked the first row into the back bump. So here's the top of my stitches. There's the bottom. That's the foundation chain that you're looking at. Right. So I have done row 1, which is single crochet in the second chain from hook and each chain across. And then I turned and I single crocheted all the way back. All right. So I am almost at the end of my row 2. And the pattern instructions tell me to single crochet in each single crochet to end of row. So I've got 1 stitch and then 2 stitches. And then it says join B. Well, I want to make sure that when I join that next color, I do it correctly. And this can be a little confusing if you've never done it before. So let me go back here. A single crochet, an American single crochet, is go in, yarn over, pull up your loop, and yarn over and pull through 2. But when I'm going to change color, I'm not going to finish the single crochet. So what I want to do is go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, and stop right there. Then I'm going to join B. Now I need to cut my purple yarn here because I was using it for something else. With my B color, the purple, I'm going to do a yarn over and pull it through to finish that single crochet. So let's see what happened there. When I go back here, I have a shea butter color, gray color on my hook. When I go in and do the stitch, if I finished the single crochet with that silver or gray, whatever we want to call it, and then did a chain one with the purple, then I've got that stitch kind of jumping up into the next row, that color, that gray color jumping up into the next row. That's why I want to come back here and finish my single crochet with the purple. So now I have changed color. I've joined B. That's what they mean by join B. I've just changed color. All right. And I'm going to turn. And now I'm on the third row. And this is where things get a little more exciting. You can either read the written instructions or you can read the chart. Now, I'm usually a chart reader. This doesn't show very well in this camera, but I'm usually a chart reader. But I may have a little trouble reading it tonight as I'm talking to you and trying to crochet at the same time. So I am going to read the written instructions tonight. All right, so with B, chain one, single crochet in the first single crochet. So that's this first gray stitch right here. That chain one does not count as a stitch. So single crochet in the first single crochet. Then slip stitch in back loops of each of next 17 single crochet. So what does that mean? The front loop is the side that's closest to me. So if you see I have a V-shaped stitch here, the front loop is the half of the stitch, the half of that V that's closest to me, and the back loop is the half that's farthest away from me. So instead of working under two loops, I'm going to work under just the back loop. And I'm going to slip stitch. So that's go in, yarn over, whoops, and pull all the way through. That's one. Go into the next one, two. Go into the next one, three, four. What I'm doing is I'm leaving that front loop available to work into later. Can you see there's a little strand there? We're going to be looking at that later. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm not going to go that slowly for all of these. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. There's a tendency to make those a little bit too tight. You want to make sure that you can stretch them out and you're not making really tight slip stitches there. So that was 17 slip stitches. Now, one single crochet in each of next 16 single crochets. So these are regular single crochets. So go in under both loops and do 16. So I'm going to do that pretty fast. 2, 8, 9, 10. Yes, I do count aloud. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All right, when you're setting up the stitch pattern, you have to be careful to get the right number of stitches. After you get it established, it's not quite as hard to keep track of. But I like to go back and check 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. All right. Then we have slip stitch in the front loops, or sorry, the back loops of the next 16 single crochet. So here we go with the back loops again and slip stitches. Be sure you know the difference between slip stitches and single crochets, because it is going to make a difference. And like I say, this part, the first few rows, I think are the hardest. Probably not ideal to be doing it as you're watching me. You're going to want to go back and look at the recording as you do it. So let's see how many I have done here. I think it's to the next to the last stitch. So I'm going to go back and count those. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And in this case, I'm just counting those front loops that I had left over. Then I repeat that section to the last 2 single crochets. Obviously, again, I'm not doing 200 and something. I'm doing a shorter sample. The last 2 single crochets, I'm going to slip stitch in the back loop of the next to the last stitch. That means I have 17 across here. And then single crochet in the last stitch. I'll give you a hint right here that the first and last stitch of every row is a regular single crochet. So you're not doing anything fancy there. You're just doing a regular single crochet in the first and first and last stitches. So let me do row 4, and then I'm going to pause and see if there are questions about it. So row 4, we're staying with the same color. I'm going to turn and chain 1. Doesn't matter whether you turn and chain 1 or chain 1 then turn. I know somebody's going to ask that. Now, 1 single crochet in the first stitch. Yep, I knew that was going to happen. Then slip stitch in the front loops of each of the next 17 slip stitches. So what that tells me, because I like to read my work, not just read the pattern. Remember how I had 16 plus 1 slip stitches here before? Now I'm just going to slip stitch in each of these slip stitches. And this time it's the front loop. Now, let me say something about front loop and back loop. When I had it turned this way, the stitch on that side farthest away from me was the back loop. When I turn it around, the back loop is still the one that's farthest away from me, even though it was the front loop when it was turned that way. Now, that's not meant to be confusing, but just know that the back loop is always the one that's the furthest away from you. It doesn't have anything to do with right side and wrong side, because people get confused about that. All right, so I'm going to slip stitch in the front loop only. And I have found this takes a little bit of doing, especially if you were too tight. So if those slip stitches that you made, if you can't get your hook in, then you need to go back and make them a little looser. This is a little bit fuzzy yarn, so you're contending with that as well. And you may have to work a little bit to make sure you're just working into the front loop. I probably should be a little looser. I'm going to actually go back because I think I'm being too tight with my slip stitches. So I want to go in and just make sure that I am totally relaxed. Like, let's do some deep breathing while we're doing these stitches to make sure that I am not pulling them too tight. So, and yes, it takes me a few minutes to get through all these. I'm going to show you what this looks like. I'm only looking at one strand here, but when I go through, I just want to make sure that I'm not going under both loops of that stitch. I'm just going through the front loop. And I'm doing that in each of these slip stitches. And in a moment, when I get through this part, I'll be able to breathe because I'll get to the single crochet portion, which is like a breath of fresh air. When I was doing my practice piece this weekend, I found this first part to be a little bit tedious, and then I really got into it and I was like, oh, I might have to make this project. Okay, let's see where we are here. I think I have one more. let's count. There's my first stitch. Then I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Whoops, there's one more. 17. Then one single crochet in each of next 16 single crochets. We'll see that I can tell that's a regular stitch. So I'm going to do 16. Seven, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, and I can see that's the last one, 16. And then once again, I'm going to do another set of those front loop slip stitches to get to the end of the row. So this mosaic crochet is 2 rows of each color. You're only ever carrying 1 yarn at a time, but it's going to look like you've carried 2 yarns. So if you look at that pattern, you can see, doesn't it look like the purple and the gray are on the same row? And they're not. It's just 1 color at a time. But the next row is where the magic happens. So just bear with me and we'll get to the next row and you'll see how the pattern starts to shape up. Meanwhile, Renee, do we have any questions that I could be answering?
I'm just going through. Tammy, to answer your question really quickly, you can use any medium number 4, probably. It's just going to change your colors a little bit, I think. Edie, if you use a different, say it was a solid yarn.
Yeah, this is a fairly thick number 4 yarn. So you might want something a little bit on the heavy side, and you're definitely going to want to do a gauge swatch and check, because you may want to do another repeat depending on what size you want. But yeah, this would work with any yarn.
Yeah, I appreciate we're so consistent with always do your swatch, because it saves you so much time later down the road. Okay. I think that's it so far. Everyone, feel free to drop your questions in, and then next time we have a break, I will ask.
Yeah. So here I've worked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I think I was supposed to do 17. I sort of lost count here. Oh, then I'm going to have 1 more slip stitch in the front loop. And then here we are at the end of row 4, 1 single crochet in the last single crochet and change to A. So I'm going to go in, do my single crochet, but I'm going to stop right there with 2 loops on my hook and come around and take my yarn A, which I did not cut off, it was still there waiting for me, and yarn over and finish my stitch. Now, don't pull too tightly on this color A, because you don't want to make it go down like that. You want to make sure you have enough loop there. So here we are at the end of row 4, and I'm going to turn it around. The first row was a right side row, and I find it a little bit hard to tell on this pattern. Sometimes it's a little confusing. You might want to take a marker, and I'm going to just grab a marker here. It might just be helpful to put a marker on the side that's the right side. Just if you have trouble keeping track of which row you're on, you can know that if you're looking at a right side row, you're about to work an odd number row. So that can be helpful. If you're left-handed, of course, you're going in the other direction. I'm sorry, I can't show you the left-handed version too, but this is a symmetrical pattern, so it works both ways. You'd be doing the same thing, whichever way you're going. Okay, row 5. Here we are with color A. I'm going to chain 1 single crochet in the first single crochet. Yep, I told you that. We knew that. Now, 1 double crochet in front loops of each of next skipped 17 single crochet 2 rows below. What does that mean? It's not as confusing, hopefully, as it sounds. Okay, that was a lot of words. Okay. All right. So remember when we did those back loop single crochets and I said you were leaving the front loop free? Well, that's where we're going to be working now. We're going to be working the front loop 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. And I didn't do that one right. There should be a 17th one there. So I made a mistake. You can see the mistake right there, but sorry. We'll fudge it right now and then I'll show you on the rest of them. So I'm working a double crochet in the front loop of this gray stitch down here. I'm ignoring the purple. So if I go down here and I'm going to go under that front loop, I'll just go down under this one, under the loop. So I'm going from bottom to top and doing a double crochet and bringing that up here. So what has happened is that silver has covered the gray. Can you see that? It's changed the color of the stitch that's there. Let me do that again. Yarn over, go down from the bottom to the top, just under that front loop, and do my double crochet. I want to make sure that I'm making that double crochet loose enough that it can stand up all the way up here at the beginning or at the level of my current row. So I don't want to be too tight. Let me do one more here, and then I'll show you what it looks like if I'm too tight. So there's my double crochet. If I'm too tight, if I keep it way down here, I'm working really tightly, it's going to start going down like that, and you don't want that to happen. You want to make sure you're just keeping that, you're bringing this first loop up, this golden loop. You want to make sure that loop is a nice even tension, not too tight, not too loose. So I'm going to do that all the way across. And what is happening is I'm covering, remember all those slip stitches? We're actually trying to cover those up. So as I work across here, the gray is covering the purple. It's disappearing. Okay, let me see how many I have. 2, 4, 6, 8, 9. So I'm going to go all the way across here. But when I get to the end of this section where all those slip stitches were, I'm going to do some regular single crochets or double crochet, single crochets. So, and you can see, you'll be able to start reading your pattern or reading your work, because without even counting, when I get to the end here, I can see I only have one more front loop available to me. Okay, so I'm going to do that front loop. Let's stop and take a look. So now all my purple has disappeared from there. It's hidden, it's hiding back there. So that was my one double crochet in front loops of each of next skipped 17 single crochets 2 rows below. Phew. All right, the next instruction starts with an asterisk, 1 single crochet in each of next 16 stitches, single crochets. Well, that's easy enough, right? So we're just going to do single crochet. 2, 3, 4. Let me get some more yarn here. $10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. And because I am reading my work, I go, okay, I bet I know what's going to happen next. I bet I need to cover up these slip stitches, these purple slip stitches, by working into the front loops of these stitches. And yes, that's what I'm supposed to do. There's my first one. I'm going to go down here and do my double crochet. Another thing you don't want to do is this. Whoops. You don't want to pull up so much on that stitch. You see what I'm doing there? You don't want that to happen. You see how I've pulled up on that stitch? You want to make sure that you're letting that front loop, I've probably stretched it out of shape now. You're letting it just stay down there on the row that it wants to be on. You're not trying to pull it up to the next row. So we are working in front of those purple slipped stitches all the way across. And I don't even have to count at this point unless I just want to. See, I can talk to you and not count because I'm reading my fabric. I know what I need to do. I know all the way. I don't have to pay attention to anything until I get to the end of the row because I can just see what is supposed to happen next. Now, some of you have heard me say this over and over and over again, and you're probably tired of hearing me. But I really think that the thing that makes crochet so enjoyable or can make it so enjoyable is when you start being able to read your fabric and read your work and not have to be a slave to the pattern. So as I am working on a pattern, even at the beginning, by about row 3, I'm trying to see what's going on with the pattern so I can read what's going on here on my fabric rather than just like having to check off every single stitch. Okay, so here I am. Here's my last front loop stitch that's available to me. And then I'm going to single crochet in the last stitch and turn. Now, I haven't flipped to my next page yet of the pattern, but I can almost tell you what's going to happen. I know I don't need to change colors because I already know I'm doing 2 rows of gray and 2 rows of purple. So I'm not changing color on this side, so I know that's okay. I'm going to turn. Now I do need to see what happens on the next page. Whew, this one's fun. This is single crochet in each stitch across, chain 1, and these are regular single crochets. So this is just me single crocheting. And as I do that, Renee, you can ask me some questions, please.
Sure. Can you tell us a little bit about your hook?
Yes, this is a Susan Bates hook. It's an inline style hook. So some people like inline, some people like non-inline. I like inline hooks that are straight across here. And this one has a nice handle to it. I have some Susan Bates hooks that don't have this extra little handle here. And I bet Renee or somebody's probably going to put a link in the chat about this hook.
Yes, I certainly will. I'm a fan of the little grip also. It does make it a little easier.
And different people are going to like different types of hooks. Like if I happen to be a pencil grip person, but some people are knife hold people and hold their hook this way, which I don't. So, you know, everybody's going to have their own choice and their own preferences for hooks. And some people prefer the boy style hook, which has a more rounded head, but these are the ones I like. And awesome. I can take some more questions too, because it's going to take me a moment.
There was only one other from a while back. Just give me a second. So this was from about 10 minutes ago. So I think it was right when we took our last break. Patricia asked, when you changed color, you put the purple yarn in the front and the white gray yarn in the back to finish the single crochet. Is there a reason for that? Is that the back loops, Edie?
Let me check and see, because I'm about to change color. So let me pay attention to what I did. Okay, because I may have just been doing it without thinking. But let's take a look before I get to the end of the row. This is the wrong side. And I want you to see what's happening here. Can you see there's like a little ridge here? Because these are the slip stitches that we didn't work into, right? They just were staying out of the way. So there's a little bit of a texture going on here on the wrong side, which is perfectly fine. It just makes it kind of interesting on the wrong side as well as patterned on the right side. So yeah, I'll see what I do when I change colors here when I get to the end of the row. This is one of these where I warned Renee it was going to take me a while to get across here. Here we go. All right. I'm going to do my last stitch and change color. Well, the first thing I always do is I want to make sure that I'm like not using my yarn tail, you know, like this purple tail here or whatever. I want to make sure that's out of the way. I don't know that it matters. I usually pick up from underneath. So I usually take my old color and bring my new yarn up from underneath it. I think that's what I usually do. But I don't know that it matters. You probably, if you're paying attention, you probably want to do it the same way every time. But honestly, I wasn't paying attention to that when I've got so many things on my mind while I'm trying to talk and crochet at the same time that sometimes I just didn't pay attention. But again, you probably want to do it the same way every time because it's going to give you the same look as the yarns sort of jump over each other on this side. All right, let me take a quick drink here and ask. You can ask one more question and then I'll talk about row 7.
Okay. Does mosaic only go from one side to the other typically, or are there a few different variations?
So you can certainly do mosaic crochet in the round. There's some types of mosaic crochet. This is, as I say, it has 2 rows of each color. There's some kinds of mosaic crochet that use only just 1 row of each color and you switch every other row, which is the kind I usually do. And that does require, if you're working flat, you end up cutting the yarn at the beginning and end of every row. So you end up with kind of a fringe, but you can work it in the round with no problem. So this is, this one is worked back and forth and you could work it in the round as well. It just happens that this pattern is done this way. And like I say, I have a different type of mosaic crochet that I do and that I teach. And I have a couple of patterns that are done in the round and they're really more fun in the round because then you don't end up cutting that yarn and getting fringe, because I'm not a super fan of fringe. Is it okay to say that? I don't love fringe.
This is a safe space for anti-fringe.
Yeah, okay, thank you, good. Watch the next project Michaels wants me to do be like some totally fringed thing. I'm like, I'm sorry.
There's a mosaic for everybody.
Exactly, right. Okay, so here I am on row 7. I've got B, and I'm going to chain 1, single crochet in first stitch. Yep, got that. Slip stitch in back loops of each of next 6 single crochet. So here we go. 1, 2, remember it's back loop, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is one where you have to pay attention because the pattern's changing a little bit. Then single crochet in each of next 6 single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And here's something that I think I better do for myself. You see, I've made myself a few notes. I can get really confused when I'm trying to follow all of this, okay? So one thing I can do sometimes is if I can't keep track of where I am, I will use like a little Post-it note or something because it's hard for my eyes to keep track of this. So I did 1 single crochet in each of the next single crochet. And I'm just going to put this here so my eye can just go right here. Slip stitch in back loops of each of next 6 single crochet. So we're going to go in back loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then single crochet in each of next 14 single crochets. So just plain 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm going to stop right here and tell you that I like to say, wonder what's going on here. I can look at the picture. Do you see, remember how I had 16 purple stitches here? And now I have 14. And if I look at the picture, I can see, oh yeah, you see how it's going down? I bet on the next time I do purple, I'm going to have 12, and on the next time I'm going to have 10 or something like that. You see how I'm doing this part right here. So that's what's happening. And I want to make sure that those 14 are centered over this 16, just to make sure I'm putting my stitches in the right place. Then I'm going to go back to where the asterisk is, and it says slip stitch and back loops of next 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and single crochet in next 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's see, slip stitch in the back loops of the next. It says repeat from asterisk to last, oh, well, it said to last 19. So that's where I am here. And it's going to be 6 again here, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then I know the last one is just a regular single crochet. Anybody want to take a guess at what's going to happen on the way back? Do I really need to look at this, or can I just read my work? Remember before, when I had slip stitches, I worked into just one loop of the slip stitches. And when I had single crochets, I worked in both loops of the single crochet. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to look at row 8. Hopefully not lose track of it. First stitch is single crochet. And then slip stitch in front loops of the next 6 stitches. Yep. Dig in there. This is a little bit hard to do just because it's fuzzy and dark. So 5. I've got one more. You see that one more stitch there. And now I can see I have 6 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then I have some more front loops I need to do. So at this point, for myself, because I have done one of these swatches before, I am no longer looking at my pattern. For the rest of this row, you certainly can look at the pattern, do whatever you need to do. But what I do is I read my fabric. That was 6. And now there was one more, I think. And then single crochet, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It should be 14. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. And then again, here I am at my front loops. So I'm going to stop right here for a minute, turn it over. because I want to show you, in case we run out of time, I want to show you that these places where there are front loops available now, sorry, here and here, and they're going to be here and here, that's where the gray is going to cover. So although this row is all purple, some of it's going to turn gray when I do those long stitches again. Just to give you an idea of what is happening with the pattern. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 single crochets. I tell you, when you get to those regular single crochets, it's a little bit more relaxing, isn't it? Did I count that right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'll do one more gray row so you can see what happens with that. And basically, once you've done one repeat, you'll pretty much understand it, if not be completely comfortable with it. This is not necessarily the project you want to work on while you're watching the college football national championships, but that was last night, so you're good. All right, you don't have to watch that again for a year. Here I am, last two loops of my last single crochet. I'm going to chain 1 and turn. And now we're on row 9. And I want to say something about the way the pattern is written, because it gave me a little bit, I'm not going to say I disagree with it, but it confused me a little bit. It tells me to double crochet in front loops of each of next skipped 6 single crochets. So same thing we did before, where you're working in those stitches that are a couple of rows below where you would normally work. But to me, those aren't really skipped single crochets. We didn't skip them. We worked into them. We worked into the back loops of them. So I think if I had been writing this, I would have just said into the free loops or the free front loops, because they were not actually skipped stitches. And speak up in the chat if that doesn't make sense to you, because again, we didn't skip those stitches. We worked into the back loop. So I'm going to call them, there's a free front loop here. And that's where I'm working. But if skipped makes sense to you, that's fine too. I don't know. Sometimes I like to be precise in my written language, and everybody has their own way of sort of writing patterns and also understanding patterns. So sometimes there's a disconnect between the way the pattern is written and the way your mind works, or I shouldn't say your mind, my mind works. Sometimes my mind doesn't work the way the pattern writer's mind works. And that's where I end up having problems sometimes. Okay, so there are my 6 single double crochets, and then I'm going to work single crochets in the next single crochets. And you can see that pattern start to develop. I skipped a stitch. Here's another thing that happens. Sometimes you don't start. I ended up running out of space at stitches 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let me go back. I didn't work into the first single crochet, which was over here. I got carried away. So I do want to pay attention to what's going on here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we go. 6. And there I am ready to work into those front loops one more time. So you'll start getting, it'll be gray right here. This will start going in, the purple will start going in, and then a purple will start coming out this way. And you can see how those are offset in your pattern. You're working this and this at the same time, all the way across. So those are the somewhat confusing, but eventually making sense instructions for this. And I'm going to stop and let Renee tell me what questions are in the chat.
Perfect. So this goes a little bit back to what we were chatting about earlier. So is it possible for a mosaic to have a right side and a wrong side? Is it always two right sides, or is there every kind?
Well, so as I say, there's more than one type of mosaic. I'm trying to think. Most of the mosaics I'm familiar with are going to have a right side and a wrong side. That doesn't mean the wrong side is ugly though, because I think this is pretty much a striped pattern on the wrong side. So it just looks different, but it's not like a wrong side, if that makes any sense. To me, this looks fine as a wrong side. It would be fine as a blanket or whatever. Different types of mosaics are going to have different types of, I'm trying to think if I don't have a mosaic project within my reach right now. So different types of mosaic techniques are going to give you different wrong sides. But as far as I know, unless you're using some sort of interlocking crochet, you're going to have a right side and a wrong side. We're talking about pretty advanced stuff at that point.
There's the right side and the different side.
Right, the other side, the A side and the B side, right? Like old-fashioned records where you had a A side and a B side.
I love that comparison. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to get to another question. At the end of row 8, you chained 1 before turning your work. It doesn't say that in the pattern. Is there a reason? Is that preference,
It says
Edie?
at the beginning of row 9, so you can turn and chain 1 or chain 1 and turn. It doesn't really matter. And what I end up doing a lot of times is sort of turning and chaining 1 at the same time. You know, it doesn't really matter which way you do it. So if you look at the beginning of row 9, I think it says chain 1. Yes. So I chained 1 and turned instead of turned and chained 1, and it doesn't matter. It's the same thing. Okay.
Perfect. Hang on, I'm just going to see if there was any more.
I do want to talk about the chart too. So.
Oh, perfect. That was the question I was going to ask.
Go for it. Okay. All right. So I think I'm a huge fan of charts. And so, but looking at this chart can be a little confusing until you kind of know what's going on. So now that we know what's going on, let's hold this up here. And I'm not sure, can you see that okay? I don't know whether it's in focus well enough or not. And
I think we're good.
Okay. So this is a reduced sample. In other words, this is actually what I was just doing. This is across the same number of stitches I was doing. So this is just a sample of it. And the gray sections are the part that you would repeat. So as you were working on row 3, you'd work here and then you'd work that gray section as many times as you need to get across the row. So obviously with any chart, you're going to have a stitch key, and these use our typical sort of the plus sign for single crochet, and you've got the chain symbol. One thing you'll notice here, these have the front loop and back loop symbols. So a front loop is what I call a smiley face. And to me, it makes sense because when I look at the stitch, it's kind of this way, right? So that's my smiley face front loop only. And my frowny face back loop only kind of goes this way. And that's how I remember them. So if this one is front loop only and this one is back loop only, because to me, that's what they look like. And when you put them together, you get something that looks like that. Okay. So what this tells me then on row 3, which is shown in blue, it's showing me slip stitching. That little dot is a slip stitching in the back loop. And then I had some plain single crochets, and then I was slip stitching in the back loop. First and last stitch are always regular single crochets. On row 4, I'm slip stitching in the front loop. You see, this one was the frowny blue, and this is the smiley blue. I'm slip stitching in the front loop. I'm doing regular single crochets. I'm slip stitching in the front loop. When I get to row 5, sorry, I was crocheting in the round all day today. Chain 1, single crochet in the first stitch, and there is my long double crochet. You see it reaching down into this row 2 stitch, and there's a smiley. And they aren't called smileys. I'm just going to call them smileys. Okay, that's how I think of them. So you can see that black symbol, and it has a black, so here's my, here's my double crochet reaching down and going into a front loop only. And it's showing it's going over, you see how it's sort of going over those blue stitches, or purple in my case, and into the front loop of that single crochet, the front loop that we left available. So that's what happens on that row. And then you can actually see, if you look at where those slip stitches and those long stitches are, you can see that developing. Can you see that kind of, it's not quite shaded, but I could take this marker and show you what's happening. This is what those colors are going to look like. Okay, so you've got that kind of, I don't know, kind of an X pattern, or a, I don't know what you call that, but some kind of motif thing going on there. But you see how that mimics what's going on in the picture of the shawl. Okay, so what you have, where I have all this yellow, that is where the gray stitches are covering the purple stitches to create this kind of outline effect. That actually might be a pretty easy way to help you read the chart too. I might leave that there to help me see what's going on. Okay, so yeah, it's kind of a diamond shape. It's kind of a flattened diamond shape. Yep. And I see somebody saying, is there any reason not to use a single crochet foundation? No, you can absolutely do that. I just think they didn't want to add one more thing in there. So yeah, working a single crochet foundation single crochet would be fine as well to get to 213 stitches. Okay. All right, well, that's it for me. Let me switch my camera. And I hope you found this helpful. You can find me on all social media at Edie Eckman, and you can find me online at edieeckman.com and here in Michael's classes. And if you do make this, I really do want to see it. So make sure that you, let me see if I can get this right, Renee. We want to hashtag Make It With Michaels and Yarnspo, so we can make sure that we see your work, because I want to see this done by somebody.
You nailed it. You nailed it. All right. Thank you everyone so much for joining us today for another live community classroom with Michaels. As Edie said, do not forget to share your work with hashtag Make It With Michaels and hashtag Yarnspo. Tag Edie, tag us, tag everybody. We love to see what you make, and it really makes our day to see it. And just a reminder that you can find more classes on michaels.com and the recording of today's class at michaels.com/classes. Okay, good night, everybody. Thank you.
Good night.